Negative Disincarnates by Renee. What are negative disincarnates or negative spirits? All of what we can see with our eyes in the physical realm has a spiritual or energetic component, or type of consciousness, that exists in the same space or another dimension of time. All of what we cannot see with our physical eyes reveals a vast system of interconnected spiritual energetic components that also coexist with us in the material world. Spirits do not need to be incarnated into a human body or any kind of physical body, in order to coexist with us right here in this realm. For most people, they exist outside the visible light spectrum, and we must develop our higher sensory perception, or soul-feeling body, in order to perceive and feel their energy signature in the environment. During the ascension cycle, humanity is coexisting with many more different kinds of spirits that exist in the world of subtle forces. There are spirits that are benevolent, loving, and truthful, and there are spirits that are harmful, hateful, and deceptive. There are also many spirits that exist somewhere in between love and hate. It is important for us to know the difference, without judgment. We will need to recognize which frequency is love and which frequency is hate, as this is incredibly important to us on the ascending or awakening path. Deceiving spirits will represent themselves as light and truth spirits when they are not. They are called imposter spirits for this reason. Imposters are negative spirits that seek to create delusions and deceptions in people's unconscious mind in order to manipulate them to create more pain and misery, or to serve something that benefits themselves. Like a very selfish and uncaring person, negative spirits are also very selfish and do not care about the harm or destruction they help to create. Many of them became devoid of love and soul, from being the same kind of selfish person while they were alive on the earth. When they passed on to the spiritual realms, they were left disembodied with the same kind of mental or emotional conflicts they had on earth, and they may exist in servitude to more powerful dark forces. There is nothing to fear about the spirit world, however. We must proceed into spiritual knowledge with love, respect, courage, and humility. When we make the spiritual commitment to expand our consciousness and develop personal clarity, we will be exposed to many different kinds of spiritual forces. Most people that are being manipulated by negative spirits on the earth, actually do not believe they exist or do not understand their nature. Others do believe in them and are terrified of them. We must find the moderate path in understanding that negative spirits do exist, inside and outside of a body, not seeking them out, not fearing them, but acknowledging their nature of existence. If we have staunch belief systems that refuse to budge from mental rigidity, our eyes will only see what we confirm through our bias and personal fears. If we are terrorized by the thought of spirits, they will be able to manipulate our fears and actions very easily. When we sense them, we can identify what they are, and this is critical knowledge, and so to not become manipulated by them, unconsciously, through your own fears. People that depart from the physical body without any semblance of developing heart-based qualities, or do not have a light body, or have not made spiritual connections with their soul, or they lived on earth with an extremely selfish, negative perspective of life, based only on the material realm, are generally, at death of their body, brought under the hierarchy of control of negative disincarnates, also called imposter spirits, or fallen angelics. Higher level negative energies control lower level negative energies in the afterlife. This is a form of the consciousness traps that are set in the lifetime of that person to prepare them for servitude in the afterlife, as many disincarnates are not even aware that they are being controlled by dark forces, while living or when passed on. They are set up to be put in servitude to dark forces, when their spirit body fragments or vibrates to exist in the phantom realm. There are hierarchies of negative disincarnates or negative spirits in phantom or hell realms that use their spiritual energies or their consciousness to be directed for the sole purpose of feeding satanic or demonic energies and entities, many times with the explicit intention of gathering negative energies towards harming a person or harming humanity in general. Many times this harm is generated in order to claim that person at the death process. The extent of harm they are capable to direct to a person or humanity, is relative to their black force spiritual strength, the underworld or phantom dimensions from which they exist, and that life force which has been accumulated from the binding or killing of the weaker groups of entities or souls. Negative spirits, as it is their nature, will reveal themselves to behave in all ways that are parasitic, vampiric, manipulators and thieves. They deceive and steal in order to cord, attach and gain energy from their host or target. Their ability to parasitize and control the minds, emotions, soul or physical body of human beings is heavily dependent on whether their target is spiritually strong and developed, and how pure and energetically balanced their spiritual light body has been built to communicate with the higher self and God forces. A strong, balanced and clear aura or neutral energy field, is the ultimate protection from these dark force attacks. Interfering with spiritual practices. This is why as a light worker, starseed or indigo, it is important to understand that the first place these negative spirits will attack or manipulate is to interfere with your personal spiritual practice and spiritual devotion. They will try to interfere with all means of direct spiritual communication with one's higher self. Satanic spirits are capable to reverse connections in the neurology to brain receivers to accept pain, abuse and distortion as familiar and acceptable energies. These dark forces will do anything they can to thwart, deceive or stop the human from accessing any kind of spiritual practice which increases their personal light source, builds their light body, teaches personal sovereignty, and opens direct communication with one's higher self, avatar Christos self, and the eternal light of the God forces. All grid workers and those on the earth that represent and support the Christos Sophia reclamation, support humanitarian issues and God forces to help heal the earth and humanity, will be targeted by high-level sorcery and black magicians in order to stop that person or group's spiritual mission. This is why in every case, we must never give up our spiritual practices, dedication to serve God SDO, or defer authority or will to any negative spirits, archontic deception strategy or black magician. Pray, meditate and communicate with your higher self or God forces to help strengthen your spiritual power, as much as possible, until you are always in direct contact. Lower disincarnates that may also be considered ghost entities, or earthbound spirits that were humans from another timeline, are the most common spirit attachments for most people, and they are usually generated from that person's ancestral line and ancestral history. Sometimes the ancestor spirit is under the control and servitude of fallen angelics or black magicians and is being forced to cause negativity into the lives of their descendants. Demons will use that person's own ancestors to create harm, or that ancestor has digressed into a demonic state from his, her own negative choices that harmed many other people, living or passed on. The main reason a person, such as an ancestor, has become a negative spirit or demon is that their consciousness was made up of a primary negative quality and negative vibration at the time of their death from this world, thus, they were absorbed into the demonic stream of consciousness. For this and many other reasons, it is important to apply spiritual housekeeping and energetic clearing on behalf of your ancestors, as this issue of genetic path cutting for our ancestors, the mother and father lineages, will show up repeatedly throughout the ascension process and expanding consciousness. directing harm and negativity. How dark forces can impact a person relates to that individual's development of spiritual strength and spiritual devotion in order to deflect and neutralize these kinds of psychic attacks, negative energies, curses or negative forms, or repel the lower hierarchy of negative spirits that are sent to harass or weaken that person when they are targeted. The method of spiritual devotion and practice does not matter. What matters is that a person develop a true, genuine, loving connection with the spirits of God. The primary way that negative spirits gather strong amounts of black force that they use to fuel their black magic that is directed to harm people, is through influencing archontic deception behaviors of producing self-hatred and self-abuse, and then, with even more harmful methods of blood sacrifice, satanic ritual abuse, which is the intended torture, binding, raping or killing of another life. They use forms of tortuous abuse to capture aspects of the soul into negative spiritual attachments and bindings of servitude, for the purpose of gaining more black force strength in order to project or cast black magic to have control over others. Thus, it is true that curses, hexes, symbols exist and are used very commonly on the earth. Black magicians exist as living entities or disincarnates on other dimensional planes. They are human and non-human, and they desire to exert complete control over others and ultimately, to completely enslave other realms of beings. These realms of which they attempt to enslave or bind through various means is not only human, it exists in every realm, such as in the elemental, animal, plant and the nature kingdoms of the earth. Negative disincarnates direct harm and negative energy to accomplish their goals through a dark hierarchy of power that is organized like the mafia. Because on Earth, humans have been mind-controlled to feel that they are crazy to believe in such things as negative spirits, and few people have developed their higher sensory perception in order to perceive them, these dark entities go unnoticed and unchallenged. Consistent and dedicated spiritual practice is the only way to protect oneself from the many dark forces that exist in the spirit worlds. Some of these dark hierarchies of negative spirits include the most common of disincarnated ghosts, demons or fallen angelics, naga serpents, goblin or golems, shadow creatures, witch or warlock, and sorcerer types or black magician. Black magician or sorcerer levels use shape-shifting and conjuring methods in order to form any kind of dark entity which is formed from the black force substance in order to harness subtle energy forces in the environment. These are the dark masters or the black gurus of the realm they inhabit. Many are hardcore terrorists that work diligently to spread fear, war, killing and hate in humanity. Essentially, they gather and steal energy and power from all living things in order to wield control through terrorism. These dark forces impact the general human population in vast amounts, especially now during the ascension cycle, as our ascending planet undergoes the war over consciousness that impacts all living things. Black magicians and sorcerer types can shapeshift to take many forms depending on what their objective may be. Lower negative spirits tend to take generic forms that make up the collective mind of humanity. It is easier to steal a form that is believed in by many people, than to create a lesser known form or a totally new form. As an example, many astral negative spirits can easily project Jesus, Mary, angels or other well-known religious icons to the minds of people. Many of them are tricksters and their nature is to trick, deceive and manipulate in order to create harm or confusion, which pleases their dark masters. Obsessions, intense desires and cravings. Negative disincarnates and the array of dark spirits in the environment are many times responsible for extremely amplified obsessions, dark depressions or addictive thoughts, that produce intense desires, cravings or addictions. These issues can also be source problems that are genetic weakness that are generated as physiological and psychological problems in nature, but these weaknesses will also be exploited in the energetic realms by dark forces. Intense desires, obsessions or addictions are energetic weaknesses that will make it easy for the dark force to gain control over their victim. When being harassed by negative spirits, that person will experience extreme levels of energetic density, heaviness, gloom and doom, depression, sadness, addictions, and this may lead to hearing voices and strange noises, smelling odd or unpleasant odors, and finally, schizophrenic symptoms and other mental disturbances. The most common forms of manifesting obsessions into addictions is with the intent to gain control over that person's mind and body by amplifying the personal weakness that person has not resolved, healed or cleared. Once the dark force has control over the person's mind and body, it gains access to the soul or spiritual forces. At this point binding, attachments, artifacts like satanic insignia are placed upon that person's energy field and possessions are made possible. Negative spirits and black magicians operate in the black substance realms, also the lunar forces, and will attempt to shift a person that is holding light energy in their light body, to be drained of their light source, sucking the soul, and to become black force generators. A human becomes a black force generator when they are consumed inside by the black force. This is manifested as self-hatred, and many different negative emotional states. As a result of sexual misery and victim-victimizer mind control programming, many people are harassed with a variety of addictions, such as commonly producing intense sexual desires, in order to pervert and steal their sexual energies while exploiting their emotions into feeling guilt and shame. Intense sexual thoughts are commonly used to disrupt or interfere with the development of purity and dedication in spiritual practices, as lustful desires block the spiritual seeker's path from gaining higher access levels to the God force. Lower sexual energies must be channeled upwards or expressed in positive, creative and loving ways through the heart. If they remain stuck as addictions in the sacral center, they can be a source of negative spirit attachment and servitude. If a person is severely weakened in holding appropriate sexual boundaries, has low self-respect, is not in control of their personal sexual energies, such as a person that has been raped, abused or molested as a child, astral rape and manipulation of the sexual energies from negative spirits may continue into adulthood. Soul disconnection. Recognizing deviant behavior as soul disconnection, the more fragmented and damaged a person's energetic body is operating, or not operating at all, the more distorted the thoughts and behaviors become. These deviations are manifested as addictions, perversions and a wide array of damaging disorders that can be well observed in the individual as destructive to the self and destructive to others. When one is continually destructive to the self, or others, eventually the soul layers fragment and split. When a human being is soul split, they will exhibit tendencies that are called schizophrenia, dissociative personality, sociopathy, lack of empathy, and an array of psychological distortions that lead to insanity. Insanity is a description of the existence of hell realms, and is how to easily recognize possession through satanic, anti-life, behaviors that are controlled by the possessing entity or thought form possession. The possessing entity can also be hijacking the negative alien body also. The alien body's hive mind is controlled by the satanic spirit who is trolling for bodies to experience certain realities or to provide energy resources for alien machinery. Entities both human and non-human that possess others' bodies are referred to as satanic or anti-life forces imposter spirit, as no other type of light being will choose to possess the body and control the free will of another being. A Christos, life force, being never will take over another's body or attempt to control any person to propagate destructive acts. However, the Christos being is the only truth being that can deliver any entity from its satanic bondage back into the heart of the God Source Creator, if it is so divinely orchestrated.